Podcast, WATP.
We did a segment about Ethan Klein, and Lucy Tightbox and I were talking after the show, and we were talking about, Ethan's got a lot of tics. He's got that sniffing tic. He's constantly touching his nose. And when you do that on a show, people assume maybe you're snorting drugs.
Yeah, it's weird. I used to have that tick.
Yes, you did.
It went away.
So we know about this, right?
It's an expensive tick.
It's a very expensive tick, and it's not flattering in any way. So he started up his show. I think this is from Friday morning, Ethan's show. And I was watching this just to pick up on his alleged drug use. But there's something bigger going on here that I do want to get into. But he'll be talking about that here. But let's start off by just listening to how much he's sniffling and how gross this is, for lack of a better term.
This morning, listen, in our long career of being influencers in the public sphere, we've been swatted several times.
Yep.
People say, "Hey, I killed my wife and kids, and I'm in the closet, and I'm gonna kill myself."
And I put bombs around the house.
It's usually something like that, and then the helicopters come, fire trucks come, police come. I remember it happened where they went around the perimeter of our house and Shredder got out. It was so scary. That part was so scary. We weren't there at the time. We've also had the FBI come to our house, actually, at this point, several times. One of them being to tell us not to open any packages until further notice.
How distracting is that? Who's watching the show who's a fan of it and isn't just sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, you're going to keep doing that?" 3-4 times in a row between sentences.
Yeah, I take it back. I didn't have that tick.
No. Well, that, to me, and I'm just observing things I have done my entire life, this is a guy who just started this show. It seems like it is fresh in his system. Right?
How bad were his tics and his Tourette's before? I never saw it this bad, but I know it is a part of it. And people, a month or two ago, it was the coughing. Every other sentence was
right.
It was constant. Now there's no coughing. It's weird. It's like a weird OCD tic thing where it's twice, and I don't know what's happening. It's definitely a mix of like whatever he had before mixed with some kind of caffeine or speed and like staying up all night and freaking out about his life, because the way he's acting is reflected by the things he's saying. Like, all these guys, they just stopped doing their show and they just are all Lenny Bruce at the end of their life.
Yes.
Now. And a lot of them, I didn't get to see them when they were Lenny Bruce talented. So I only know KB as this like unfunny wet Q-tip. Like I don't know what the appeal is. And this thing is just him railing against his enemies. Every time I tune in a more disheveled, frantic, and like less stable state.
And it's getting worse and worse. And we pointed this out before. However he's handling this, and it's not good what's happening to him, he's doing it wrong. Because it keeps getting worse and worse. He's going to explain that in this clip. I also pulled this clip just because the continuing tick here of him sniffing.
Drake.
This morning we got a visit from Child Protective Services because I told this story on the show a few weeks ago about how when we adopted Olive, she had Giardia. And then the next day, Sonny started having diarrhea, so we suspected he might have Giardia. Seeing as that he's an infant, he's crawling around, he's putting everything in his mouth, etc. Makes sense, right? It's obvious. So it turned into this whole snark narrative that our house is a mess, that there's dog shit everywhere, that Sonny is eating shit and getting Giardia, and that, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So CPS, Child Protective Services, visited their house that morning. So he's a little shooken up by that, it would appear, which...
That's fair.
Very fair. His, I think, 8-month-old son, Sonny, had Giardia. And so he talked about it in the show, and then people on the internet and his enemies ran with it, and they got CPS to visit the house. Now, let's fast forward about an hour and a half into the show. Okay? So he talks about all this stuff. He goes through all these kinds of things. Now, you're going to notice the sniffling is not happening nearly as much an hour and a half later.
They might say no now.
You could say this. Do you like it?
Oh, wow.
Okay, hold on. Because I want to know if they think you should keep the goatee or get rid of it. But those are too hard. Those are two separate pulls.
Oh, I'm getting really confused, and I'm really
like
nervous now.
The Abstabon. Yes or
What do we think of Abstabon? Yes or no?
And then afterwards, you could say, should he keep the goatee or shave the goatee? So we have two very pertinent polls, and I'll look forward to the results when I come back.
So there he gets up to take a leak. All right. So I don't know if he's coming down or what's happening. Maybe he just has to pee. I don't know. But he's gone for 5 minutes. It's a long time to tinkle, but I mean, there's other things you got to do, I suppose.
In the middle of your show?
In the middle,
live
yeah,
stream?
in the middle of the show, yeah, he just gets up and walks away for 5 minutes. And then, so you just saw right there, he's much more under control. He still has the tick a little bit, but nowhere near what we saw at the beginning. Well, now he comes back after this bathroom break, and it's like he's back into the early show format again.
Just to touch on, I appreciate your obviously, like, this is probably the most fucked up thing that these people could do. And it's put me and Ela in the headspace of just, the gloves are off at this point, and you guys will see the effects of that as we.
He also has a nervous energy going now. He's shaking a little bit. He keeps playing with his hat and his face.
Move forward through this. But I make no apology. And I will do everything that I can to hold any of these people to justice in any possible way that I can. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to be happening. And if you guys have any other clips of Denim saying that our kids, anything about our kids and the dog thing, I would love if you guys can compile that for me.
It just gets funnier.
I mean, how quickly would you slap me across the face if I was doing that on the show? You would reach over the table and knock me out.
And that's the point. You said it, Carl. Like, they talked about his coughing. They talk about his Tourette's. He's very open about it. He even talks about when it goes off and it's busy and when it calms down. And they talk about it. No one is saying anything about this because either they can't or they know not to. Look, I was on the fence about this, but when you showed him not sniffing, by the way, for those listening, every one of those was real. Nothing was added. It's constantly like a computer, but he was the physical embodiment of coming down. He was slouching. His head was dropping. He had no energy. And at the last second, he leapt up, was gone for 5 minutes, and now he is locked in.
Yes, you noticed
frozen up and like this.
Yeah.
That is, either he just took a Red Bull or something stronger.
It's like he tagged in his clone. It was like, all right, I'm going to take a nap. You take the rest of the show or something like
this one's got a charged battery. This one's dead.
A different guy just showed up. He's ready to go. So this is more right after he got back. Playing with his nose is very obvious what's going on.
Again, it's just the level of harassment that's not even just being put on us, but like everybody in our lives, our employees, the stuff that you guys are having to deal with, which I'm not going to specify or anything. That's, if you guys want to talk about it, you can, but I'm not going to put anything out there. But it's so fucking it's so unfair to you guys that.
Okay. One more example of this after he's back from the bathroom, just to drive my point home.
So it's just normal. Like I said, in Turkey, there's mandatory military service.
Yeah, and Hasan's parents flew him to America.
Yeah, he basically bought his way out of it doing it, which is the most socialist thing to do, by the way. Instead of serving your country like everybody else who is not privileged with money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're going to go much later into the show, near the end of it, and we'll see if he's coming back down again and less sniffly.
This how is this happening? I mean, the people at Reddit must just be in on it. The people at Reddit are participating in this. That's the only explanation. And I don't know. I mean, I'll fucking. I don't know how to hold these people accountable.
How do we get anybody to see this? Like,
I've tried everything, but like it gets worse, and they.
Have you tried talking to like a reporter? Like
a reporter? They're the ones. They come at me and call me crazy.
Yeah, but
Okay. So Ethan did a show yesterday where this is just him, and he's at his work computer or workstation there, and he's got his microphone in his hand, and he's going to talk about what happened. The episode's called This Is Fucked Up. He's going to talk about how the CPS got called on him. Now, what you're going to notice here is very few ticks going on. It's interesting that he looks like the old Ethan in these clips.
Friday morning, an agent showed up to our house saying that they had received an anonymous tip that our children were crawling around in dog shit, eating dog shit, and contracting diseases. Not only have they called CPS on us, now they're starting to try to call in a 5150 to get me committed. It's really gone on too far, and at this point, I'm ready to take no prisoners, take the gloves off, and call out everybody who needs to be called out.
Okay. This little corner of the internet, which is a pretty big corner of the internet, is fucked. These people have lost the plot. They've lost the thread. They're actively trying to have this man institutionalized, have his children taken away. They're doing everything they can. It's pretty crazy. I guess the moral of the story is don't fuck with Hasan Biker. Let him do his thing, because these people are out for blood.
I feel like he knows better than this. If he's been covering a lot of sensational stories about a lot of broadcasters for a long time, I feel like he knows deep down that everything he's doing is the game plan to just keep this going.
Yeah,
Why
it's
would
getting
you
worse
ever?
and worse, and he just keeps like pushing back, like, oh, I'm going to make sure I sue them, and I'm going to do this thing. Like he keeps retaliating and threatening a retaliation, and it's not helping his cause at all.
No, and he's starting to fall into that. Anyone who doesn't like me, it's because of these unknown forces that are all working together against me, not for things that maybe he could be held responsible for or do something about. And John is the same way in terms of he feels the compulsion to share with you every insult he's ever received and to make you hear all. Why are you talking about it? Stop talking about it.
And Ethan has more of a case than Stuttering John ever could have. He is being fucked with at a level that is ridiculous and should not happen on the internet. But at the same time, he's so paranoid about it. I have a clip coming up or two where you're just like, all right, man, you're making it really hard for us to get on your side, because, you know, he's just acting like such a victim. And this is a guy who, again, it goes back to like Perez Hilton drawing penises on people's faces and cum on their faces, became famous for that. And then wants to completely change his image, just be like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. So let's forget about that. I'm mainstream now, and I can interview all the top celebrities. Oh, cool. I didn't realize you could do that.
He's criticized everyone and everything freely forever to a very, very large audience. And I think he's aware of what Reddit is. And I think he knows he had no problem with it before. But the second they're talking about him, suddenly everything's very, very different. And it's a new set of rules.
Well, there's a reason for that. So the CPS shows up, and they go through the entire house. They're looking through the fridge. They go upstairs. The toddler's sleeping. They wake up the toddler. And there's more interviews coming.
My young 3- and 5-year-old children, who are sweet and innocent as can be, have not yet been interrogated by a CPS agent, but that is due to happen on Wednesday. He also spoke to our nanny, our housekeeper. He's called the pediatrician that takes care of the kids. He talked to them. Pretty much sifted through every angle of our life having to do with our kids in an extremely violating, insulting, unbelievable way.
So that's annoying. I can see why he's a bit agitated with what's going on. So what he does on this video is he pulls up evidence that there are other creators, content creators, like there's this one called Denim's Daily and Bad Empanada, who are encouraging people to call CPS on him, which is crazy. I mean, this is against terms of service on any of these platforms that they're doing this, but he pulls up an example. This is Denim's Daily watching Bad Empanada, and he shows you what the chat is doing during this.
I think it's time to hold all of them accountable. Here, for example, is Denims, a.k.a. Hasan Waiting Room, watching Bad Empanada talk about the state of our house and how we take care of our kids. Let's take a look.
He lets his dogs shit all over his mansion, and he just leaves the shit on the floor, something that is probably related to the fact that his former housekeeper is suing him for a number of different reasons. So I would assume he doesn't actually have a housekeeper anymore, or perhaps he lost his extra housekeeper. So now the house is just like covered in dog shit. And he has kids, and his kids like crawl into the dog shit, and God forbid, I don't know what they do with it. I don't know if they eat it, or if it's just from like contact with it with their hands or something. But they contracted a parasite that I had previously never heard of in my life called Giardia from the dog shit that is all over his house.
So you could see what that scroll is. Every single person is just like, holy shit, call CPS, get social security or social services involved. They need to be taken away. This is child endangerment. I mean, every single person in this chat is getting all fired up based on Bad Empanada just making this shit up. Just like, oh, there's dog shit all over the house, and the kids are eating the dog shit. Like, this is all coming from a story that Ethan himself told on his show about how Sonny had diarrhea, and they found out the dog had an issue, so they weren't sure what was going on. Here's more of Bad Empanada.
Here's Bad Empanada once again, who posted a story saying, I'm the one who called CPS on Ethan Klein. I want CPS to take his kids away because they are seriously in danger. This is, once again, Bad Empanada, who's being elevated by Hasan, Matt Lieb, Denims, and tons of creators, leftist creators all over the internet.
Here's my problem with this. This Bad Empanada saying, I called CPS, I want those children taken away. Don't pretend like you care about Ethan Klein's children. You don't. This is the thing that Nick Rekieta was saying when everyone's just like, oh my gosh, Nick's kids, they're in danger. This is so bad. And it's like, no one cares about my kids. None of these people give a shit about that. They just want to hurt me. And so the fact that Bad Empanada is going out there and just being like, wow, you know, we really got to look out for these kids. There's kids suffering way worse than these kids who are in the home of multimillionaires with a housekeeper and the nanny and everything else that they have. The one kid got sick, and Ethan talked about that. But what I found to be disheartening, now Bad Empanada lives in Argentina, so he can kind of like get away with this shit. And Ethan's even said, I'd like to sue him for defamation and harassment, and there's nothing I can do. He's in Argentina. But this I found to be pretty ridiculous on Reddit's part.
I'm calling CPS on Ethan again. It says this time because his kids are around Zionists, which is a high predictor for baby murder. This is a post that is still up on this subreddit that was reported, and Reddit admins reviewed this and said, no, this is compliant.
How is that still up on?
He's got a point there.
On Reddit.
He's got a point.
Yeah,
wow.
That's the thing. I want to say, like, Ethan, what are you doing? You're doing this all wrong. You're putting this on yourself. But then he shows certain things like that, and you're like, huh. Yeah, this is ridiculous that people are amplifying this message of calling CPS on this guy they know nothing about. They just see him on the internet.
The problem is he's stepping foot into the Middle East conflict.
Yes.
And he's completely comfortable with words like genocide and Nazis and child abuse. And he's doing, whether it's justified or real or not, what a lot of politicians do and what John Melendez likes to do is he tried to report me for doing an episode of The Blunder Years because he said I'm actively supporting PDFs and Nazis by working with Shuli. And now whenever you search my name on the internet, somewhere, there's his, on every social media, my name accusing me of, corroborating with PDFs and Nazis because I did Shuli show, as if he hasn't worked with Shuli too. Playing that Kevin Bacon game of, aha, there's someone that and he's doing the same thing, unfortunately, going through the comments and making people be held responsible for something that was flashed on a chat, and now the host is responsible for that. Maybe he is. Either way, talking about it is the worst plan he could have ever enacted.
And the last clip I have on here is this is where you see the paranoia setting in. And we've all seen the person who's in the basement with the board up and they're trying to make connections. They're putting the pins in the different places and this connects to this and this, and he literally does this on his show.
I have never been so black-pilled in my life. I feel like I am trapped and that the world has gone fucking insane. This shit is bananas. What is happening? And I feel that I'm getting the same treatment now from Reddit. Now, I know they're both San Francisco-based tech companies.
So here he's talking about Twitch, because we talked about this on the show previously, where his video was banned for 30 days, or he was suspended 30 days for the same video that Hasan Piker put up. And then he responded to that and they said, nope, you're definitely off. And then he talked to someone and they went, oh shit, they put him back up. So now he's talking about how Twitch and Reddit, their headquarters are close to each other.
But did you know that these two companies in San Francisco, their headquarters are blocks away from each other? It's just interesting.
He's showing that it's a 16-minute walk in between the two headquarters in San Francisco. He's just like, and both of these companies are out to get me. What do you think's going on here, people?
It's a magic bullet all over again.
I rest my case. Yeah. There's nothing else to see here. Got it all figured out.
These are facts, though. Reddit, Facebook, they're not going to help you.
No.
They're not. They really don't care who you are. I've heard of celebrities that, visited the Facebook headquarters to meet with everyone and have their page. And then when their page got hacked, nobody would help them. They don't give a shit. Reddit doesn't care. This is not new news. It's just information to you now because it involves you.
I do think that Reddit can be held responsible. They do take subreddits down that break their terms of service. And what Ethan is experiencing definitely is breaking the terms of service of Reddit, because it's definitely getting into the harassment territory.
It absolutely is. I
know what you mean.
I know the ages of all three of his kids because he said it so much while I was listening to this. I'm like, why do I know this? I don't want to know this. Stop saying it. And I don't know. I don't know enough about Tourette's. When he gets emotional, it starts to come up, flare up. Maybe it very well could just be Tourette's and his meds and this, state of free fall that he's in, flailing at everything. I don't know. When you're measuring the steps between the two offices and running, they're not stopping what they're doing and running across the street for you. It's a little.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, so Adam's officially on the side of maybe he doesn't have a drug problem. Okay. I'm officially on the side of maybe he does.
Okay.
Producer Chris?
He definitely has the sniffles.
Okay. that is true.
Who are these podcasts?